Ma'am, it is audible. Let's see, Gausi ma'am. Ma'am, it is audible for you.
Hello, welcome Shantana ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Afternoon. Hope you made yourself free.
Thank you. No, I'm looking forward to the session. I attended the inaugural program and I could see that, a lot of people are interested and
Yes, ma'am, we have
very good effort
195.
in terms of, yeah. So I thought that I not only probably I would talk, but I would also learn. Therefore, I'm really excited, really, really excited.
That shows your humility,
Good
ma'am.
to meet you also. Good to meet you also after so much of talk and telephonic
I
conversation.
too was waiting for this day.
How is Korean ma'am?
She's fine. Actually, she was infected by COVID and she was hospitalized. Today she got discharged.
Ah, so same
Um,
with Ashmita, my friend. I think you know her. She works with Korean ma'am,
I didn't get the name.
Asmita Mishra.
Yes, yes, yes. She told me also.
Yeah, Asmita is my friend since my Delhi days. I was working in
Oh,
IIFT and
uh,
we used to be in the same house. So
oh, I see.
we know each other. I didn't know about Korean ma'am though, this COVID thing, but Asmita was infected, that much I know.
Yes, the whole family, four of them were hospitalized. Today they got discharged. Now they are okay, keeping fine.
So I think that is the only thing that your immunity should help you
Yes, yes,
and you must be able to get out of it. Here also
yes,
in
that's it.
Mumbai, the situation is not so good. You must be getting all kinds of statistics about Mumbai.
Yes, yes. And here too, ma'am, it has crossed 6,000 today.
Oh, okay.
Continuously accelerating.
Because earlier Kerala was in a very, very good position. We
It
believed
was,
that,
it
yeah.
was, but later everything was beyond control. Don't know.
I mean, because it had to be opened up, that is why probably it happened.
Yes, we
Bombay too
couldn't
was open.
continue to. We couldn't continue the lockdown. Lot of unemployment, and other allied issues were there. So was just withdrawn and the statistics was going higher day by day.
Mm. Now it's the only safe thing to do that probably you stay home and not kind of expose yourself to the situation. I don't know
Yes,
when
ma'am,
we are
but there are situations where we are helpless. We need to go, no?
uh, in fact, in Mumbai, you can understand we are all doing classes from home.
Yes,
However, the sections that are impacted are people who used to come to work in households.
yes,
There's no other income, and it's really, really difficult for
really
them
tough.
right now. So
A
it's
little
really tough.
virus has changed our lives,
I agree
turned it
completely
upside
with
down.
that.
Mm.
And I hope there is an end soon. That is what we are
Yes,
looking
sure.
for.
We'll be finding the vaccine soon, so we'll conquer it finally. It's time, ma'am.
That's
It's
what
time.
we are looking for. I think we need to.
Thank you.
We'll talk
Nice talking
later.
to you, ma'am.
Same
We'll
here.
continue later. Yes.
Sure.
Hello, sir.
A kind request for all the participants, please rename your device. Once again, I request all the participants, those who use his mobile device name, please rename and uh, put name as what and put name as a. Ma'am, it is audible. I request all the participants, please rename your device. Kind request for all the participants, please rename your device. It is better to understand that who all are attend or not. So I request all the participants, please rename your device.
Dear participants, can you rename your connection? Actually, it is coded, so it's difficult for our technical support to connect. Hello, am I audible? Can you rename your devices, please, participants? Please name your device with your name, which has been registered here. Dear participants, could you please rename your devices? Still, some are in codes, so it's difficult to be decoded.
Hello, Lissy Miss. Hello.
Yes, ma'am, it is audible.
Hello, Ramakrishnan sir. Shall we start? It's time.
Yeah, you can start, ma'am. But what about that welcome address?
She has come. She has come. Okay.
So let's start today's session. Over to Sister Bindu Mol.
Good afternoon to all. A warm welcome to the resource person of the day, Professor Shanthana Phadak, Dr. Pushpa Marian, Principal of Mount Carmel College of Teacher Education for Women, Dr. Binu George Varghese, Director of School of Physical Education and Sports Sciences of Mahatma Gandhi University, and my dear participants. On this third day of our one-week online faculty development program, we are privileged to have an eminent resource person from Mumbai. Let me switch on to Dr. Jaya PJ, Assistant Professor of Mount Carmel College of Teacher Education for Women, to introduce and to welcome the resource person of the day. Over to you, Dr. Jaya PJ. Hello, Jaya. Can you unmute yourself? Jaya? Okay, can hear.
Okay.
Start. Okay, can hear you.
You me?
Yes, it's audible. Start.
I am Dr. Jaya, wishing you a warm good afternoon. We are at the onset of the third day of an international online faculty development program on prospects of virtual teaching, engaging learners and empowering teachers. I am extremely glad and privileged to welcome and introduce the most renowned resource person of the day, Professor Santana Patek, Assistant Professor in Business Communication at the School of Business Management, SBM, and Narsim Monche Institute of Management Studies in the flagship Mumbai campus. Her academic work experience spans across premier management institutes in the country, including her stint at Adani Institute of Infrastructure Management, Mudra Institute of Communications, and Indian Institute of Management based in Ahmedabad, and also at Indian Institute of Foreign Trade at New Delhi. Her industry experience comes from working as an assistant editor with the Times of India. Madam has successfully worked as program chairperson of management and faculty development program at various institutes she has served and has participated in numerous national and international conferences and has publications in journals including Media Watch Global. She is also a published author with Random House India. She has submitted her thesis towards doctor in philosophy in the area of culture and communication, and her areas of interest are cross-cultural communication, strategic organizational communication, persuasion and negotiation, and spoken and written communication. Today, we are blessed to have with us such an eminent personality to enlighten us on the topic, highly effective teaching and learning methods, which is very relevant theme of this international venture. Dear Madam, on behalf of the entire Mount Carmel family and School of Physical Education and Sports Science of Mahatma Gandhi University, I cordially welcome you to this session. I also extend a warm welcome to all participants and well-wishers. Hope this session would ignite the hearts and minds of each of you in exploring your hidden resources. Take care and stay safe. May I request our resource person of the day to take over the session. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Jaya, for your generous words of introduction.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
And
you.
really grateful for the opportunity. My interaction with Dr. Koshi, Dr. Lacey Koshi, and also my ability or my privilege to attend the inaugural session of the International FDP with all of you had actually given me the impression that this is a very serious effort on the part of your institute to really gear our knowledge as well as our efforts towards being teachers in a very, very difficult time. And when I say so, I must also put myself as one of your co-teachers, because when initially the pandemic had broken out, this was a crisis of international as well as national proportion. So all of us were probably not so prepared to handle the crisis. And from our own resource-based approaches, we wanted to see how we can respond to the crisis. In that effort, being a faculty member of a renowned business school based in the financial capital of Mumbai, there were definitely opportunities created for us, which led us to attend webinars designed by renowned international business schools like the Harvard Business School, and also the British Academy of Management, probably a few other institutes like the International Association for Media and Communication Research. And together, along with these national and international very renowned faculty members, we handled this in a way that it actually enhanced our resources. And today, as I speak to you, my efforts are towards sharing all the resources that I personally have learned and found extremely useful in the context of today's time, and also to get your feedback and probably uh, working out a collective way of addressing the resource crisis or the difficulties that we find in such situations, and also to find creative solutions. That is what probably is the aim of my session today, with a deep sense of gratitude to the organizing committee that they have given me this opportunity to share my own exposure with a group of teachers who are also equally willing and equally enthusiastic about learning new ways of teaching, even when we had been probably doing it for so many years, and with passion. I mean, for me, it's the 19th year in academics, since the time I had first joined college in New Delhi. So I believe that this also talks about our own rigor towards the profession of teaching, our own passion. And I'm sure that along with all the members present today, I'm only sharing that passion towards teaching and improving teaching methodologies so that our students can benefit the most. So on that note, I have a set of PPTs, of course, because there are best practices that I would like to share with all of you. And also probably there are a few small activities which I had taken up so that we understand the medium well and also start enjoying the online medium. Most of the times our orientation is towards face-to-face learning, which we have done for so many years, and also because there is an instant connection. There is also an instant energy that the students give us in a face-to-face environment, and also because of the restrictions of time and place. That is probably the most important thing that generally we tend to miss in our online experiences, that we do not have a secluded time or a secluded place to kind of confine ourselves along with our students. We are also exposed to what is happening in and around us because we are all in our homes and probably teaching from a circumstance which is alien and unknown to us. So one of the abilities of us as good teachers is also probably to adapt to that environment ourselves and not let the nervousness be communicated through our body language to the students. So we'll see to it that together we not only learn a few things, but we work out a few exercises and activities which will help us to understand why it is important to be familiar with the surroundings and make the students comfortable. The first part of my session today, which is highly effective teaching and learning methods, challenges and opportunities. I am bringing a few methodologies which are already tried and tested and also can be used for all our purposes in terms of online learning. However, in this online environment, we cannot merely call it online. It is also a hybrid methodology. So more or less, I would be confining my discussion to the term of the hybrid methodology. A few little requirements. One, if you have pen and paper, I'm sure no teacher comes to a class without pen and paper, and I don't need to tell you that. However, there may be certain points that we need to probably note down or respond to immediately. So that is one thing that you can keep ready. The other one is, of course, you keep questions coming, because me telling a few best practices or sharing few best practices will not happen until and unless you probably let me know your own challenges and your own limitations or your resource availability or your own creative ideas. This is what I would probably look forward to the most, that how did we overcome our challenges. So a little bit of discussion would probably be on that also. So let the questions keep coming. You can always use the chat feature that is there in Zoom. I always have found that useful. So at a certain point in time during my delivery, I would also look at the chat feature and try to see to it that I can respond to few of those questions. And there are, as I said earlier, a few activities which, if I need participation, then I'm sure you will not hesitate to participate in those. So let me begin this session with a story. And why I bring a story is also very, very important, probably because an online methodology is not without its challenges. We were thrown into this situation by an external factor, a crisis, a pandemic. None of us had anticipated it and also had probably prepared for it. However, life and your profession probably needs handling uh, in a way where you can respond to crisis in a most effective way. And therefore, this story has a lot of relevance to what today we are doing or trying to do, probably. This story is, in fact, is taken from michaelhyatt.com. He's a very renowned educationist. So what he said, and one of my colleagues used to tell this story. So it goes as such. At one point in time, a remote village, there used to be a monk. It was a mountainous city, mountainous village, and therefore he used to go away to the mountains for a long period of time, do his meditation there, and then come back to the village and share his knowledge as he can from his perspective. The people in the village used to look forward to his coming and also sharing their own problems and finding their solutions from him because he was considered to be a wise man and he was extremely popular in that village. However, as you would know, whenever there is an ideal in front of us or an ideal person that we look forward to and kind of want to share our problems and knowledge, there are also detractors. So in the village, a few groups of small children, they thought that this wise man was no wise man at all. They doubted his capabilities and they said that they're going to prove it that this is probably no wise man at all. So they did some kind of discussions among them. And one of the most industrious young men said that I'm going to catch a bird and put it inside my hand, inside the palms of my hand. And I will ask him, what do I have here in my hand? If he says that you have a bird, I'll ask whether the bird is dead or alive. If he says the bird is dead, I'll release the bird and say that no, it was alive. If he says the bird is alive, I'm going to crush it to death and then show him that the bird is dead. And then people will know that probably, he's no wise man at all. So eventually, as it happens, at one point in time during the year, the man came down. He met everybody in the village. The group of children were also there. And then the boy went to him, showed him his hand, extended it, and said, what's there? The wise man was correct in saying it's a bird. Then he's asked, is it dead or alive? The wise man thought for a while and he said, my dear boy, the bird is as you want it to be. And on that note begins our story of the crisis for the profession of teaching. We never wanted the bird to be dead. However, for us, the situation is such that we are being handed over this crisis. It's in our hands. Whether we want to really utilize it as a live resource and let the bird fly, or whether we crib about the crisis and always nostalgically look forward to face-to-face teaching and not commit ourselves to what our situation demands is absolutely in our hands as teachers. And therefore, I would say that it is high time we really start nurturing the bud as it has come to us. And we must be the nurturers and the challengers and the resource providers, so that if there are a group of children who needs teaching the way the monk taught them a life lesson, we can also be those people who are telling them the correct way to face the crisis as well. So there is a twin responsibility. One definitely is that we have to give them the right resources, show them the way how to use those resources. But along with that, we must also be comfortable and use the resources to our finest abilities. So therefore, the first part of the class is on reflection. What was face-to-face teaching? What is probably an online mode of teaching? And then we go into today's discussion, which is on hybrid teaching, where we combine few elements of face-to-face teaching because it is important. It brings warmth. It gives us a sense of importance, connection, collaboration with our students. So we cannot do without face-to-face elements into our hybrid classes, and also bring the technological advances that have come into our online teaching, so that the hybrid methodology of classroom becomes a very effective one. So this is the time of reflection. This is the time to nurture our tools and also move around in a situation where probably we can utilize those resources to the optimum level. So the first reflection is on the different methodologies of teaching that were available to us and that are available to us. The first one, let's look at how we used to teach. What is offline teaching and why is it that we are so nostalgic about it? Why did we like teaching in a face-to-face school or college inside the classroom environment? And why do we appreciate that it was a very effective mode of teaching? And for that, I have actually put up a few pictures for us to understand. The first one is definitely that everybody was there. It's right in front of your eyes, and you could understand what they are doing. By that, I mean that if somebody was probably not behaving according to the ideal way, we could correct them. If you noticed somebody's interest had slacked a little, you could either pull that person up or change your topic of discussion in an exciting way so that the person gets involved. All of this could happen because there was a face-to-face presence. There were textbooks, there was a point of reference. If you were reading a line, you could see the other person also reading a line. There were rote learning. You had control over that classroom. If you had taught one section of a poem and if you asked them to repeat then and there, you would understand how much of that they had retained in their minds. And of course, over a period of time, it was easier to evaluate them, assess them through examination because it was in a written mode. And therefore, you would understand how they had probably performed in that examination. If I need to translate it into something of an activity, I can actually give you the difference right now. I'm going to do a little activity, 1 or 2 minutes probably, mostly. But if I look at the screen right now, I have only few people who have kept their cameras on. So therefore, let me tell you that I'm going to do the following activity. So there's this butterfly which has come inside. I have a window on the other side of the room, and a butterfly has come inside and it had decided to sit on my shoulder. So you can see me, I'm acting that the butterfly is sitting on my shoulder. Because I'm talking and because I'm making hand gesture, it was not probably exactly happy sitting here. So it went out and it moved around and it sat on my head. So you can see that, it's right now in on my head, and it's probably trying to settle down, and it has yet not probably settled down, and it moved around and came and it sat on my chin. Am I correct? Can anybody answer when I say it's set on my chin? Is it a correct gesture? Yes, no? You can write on the chat also if you don't want to speak. That is absolutely fine with me. But when I say it's set on my chin, is it the right gesture? So of course it's no, right? It's cheek. The answer also has come to me. And this is the difference between the online mode and the offline mode. Please understand the challenge. In an online mode, it is difficult whether the other people are also following your actions or not. In a face-to-face classroom, if I had put my hand on my cheek and said chin, immediately the students would say, no, ma'am, you are wrong. And there would be a noise about it. And I can tell them that I wanted to know whether you knew what is a cheek and what is a chin. So the whole comfort level of an online offline classroom is missing. You would understand that there is a definite gap of time in the online classroom from the offline classroom. The reaction would be instantaneous. Immediately, the students would shout and say, "Ma'am, you are wrong." Whereas in the online environment, you would see I had to ask you that question. I had to ask you to write down the answer and then repeat it back. It is lengthy consumption of time, lengthy consumption of communication, as well as lengthy consumption of sharing of knowledge. And definitely it is difficult. If we do not understand or do not appreciate this lag of time, this lag of connection, and this lag of, shared knowledge, then it is difficult to appreciate that in online learning or in hybrid methodology, the students are at a great disadvantage. Okay, I have a question. Somebody has raised a hand. Unfortunately, as Lissimam said, I cannot read the name because there is a code. So I would not be able to address you by your name, but you can please ask your question. I'm ready for a discussion on this. Yeah, I have a raised hand here. So if you want to ask anything or any clarification, please ask the question. Can you hear
Now,
me?
yes, ma'am. Now I give privilege to all the participants to unmute themselves. If any ask any question, just write your question. Unmute and speak.
Anything that I can address? Is that a question? Should I move forward?
Ma'am, that time you said regarding that your chin or cheek, if that time if organizer allowed to unmute, then definitely will speak in a second. Ki there's no, ma'am, you are in a cheek. That is the main thing. It's writing or speaking. That the speaking is on the spot and you are speaking. I feel like to speak, but the things are that it's not unmuted. Now the organizer had this decided to unmute. That is why. That is the main thing regarding the online, especially with the online.
Right,
We feel to talk.
absolutely. Nilima, that's such a good observation, Nilima, that I can't tell you. Almost one part of my class is over with that question. How do you familiarize the students with the methodology that you are initiating in your online classes? In offline classes, in face-to-face classes, we don't need to think about this. The moment the students are there, we know that they would follow our instructions instantly. In offline or in hybrid classrooms, what happens is you will have to spend a little time to come to terms with that. You you will also have to let the students come to terms with that equally. They will have to be familiarized that there is an unmute button, which you would need to know. And over this happens almost on a daily basis. That's the challenge that I'm going to talk about, Nilima. Thanks for raising that point, because technology is very important in teaching methodologies.
Yes,
And we
ma'am.
must
Thank you so
know
much.
how do we utilize that? How do we utilize the bird, Nilima? So that's probably the answer to the question. So thanks there. And from there, let me take it forward and see how do we answer that challenge, right? So on
Thank
that
you so
note,
much.
yeah, let me say that if it was an online, simple online class, many of us would do those online classes, which are probably offered by IGNO, the Indira Gandhi National Open University, or many other universities offer online courses, which are completely online. There are no teachers involved. You will get the material through a module, or probably it is pre-designed. You have to do the reading yourself. Accordingly, you have to answer those questions, and you will be given unit-wise assessments. However, this mode is not popular until and unless you are at an advanced stage of learning, or if you really need to, go to work during the day and learn during your own time. So this is a very restricted method of teaching, which has not become popular. And given a chance that we had an option for offline, we would not probably take online as a definite method of teaching. It was not so popular earlier before the pandemic scenario happened. However, now our new reality is that we have to take the advantages of both and mix and match to create our own experience, which is really, really challenging, and for which there are definite methodologies. You must understand and appreciate that this is doable. The best universities in the world are doing it. The best universities in the world are also appreciating the fact that despite the teacher missing from the classroom scenario, students are still taking admissions and looking forward to this mode of teaching, which means that there is definitely merit to this form of teaching as well. So let's discuss what is a hybrid methodology. And the first thing you need to probably think about in hybrid methodology is don't do what you did in the traditional classroom. So when I say that, it is not a thinking that has come from the challenge that traditional learning cannot be replicated in online classroom. The methodology needs to be a little different. Only if we spend a little bit amount of more time in certain methods of teaching or certain components of teaching we pay more attention to, it can become easier to us and also probably be very useful for our students. So when I say don't do what you did in traditional teaching, let me tell you what I mean by that. What is the hybrid design? And there are elements into it. Until and unless all these three elements are combined in a hybrid class, it is not as effective as face-to-face classroom. However, the moment we can include all three of them, and I'm giving you this framework of hybrid class designing from Harvard Business School, which is probably the most renowned university in the world in terms of teaching methodologies. Their case methods of teaching, their simulations, their classroom teaching are world renowned. As a response to the COVID situation, this is the methodology they had generally uh, circulated towards the teaching community or the teaching fraternity. And this is what they say, that to make hybrid classrooms as effective as face-to-face classrooms, you need to look at three things, right? Let me begin. If the design of your lesson plan needs to be hybrid, you need to take into account three things. The first one, of course, is physical environment, which means place and time. And that is where probably the discussion between Nilima and me becomes extremely useful. I'll take you through a few examples. I also have probably one extra PPT to show you on that, how they define physical environment or place and time. The idea is that you have to understand the orientation towards space. Now, what do I mean by that orientation towards space? One, and the most important one, is that as Indians, we probably have a sense of space which is not exclusive. We live mostly in joint families. We live amidst people. There is hardly any cultural space to be alone. And therefore, our students are always in a difficulty when we ask them to come to a hybrid mode. They probably are surrounded by a lot of people inside the house. You would know that Indian parenting is called helicopter parenting. Now, what is a helicopter parenting? Like the helicopter keeps hovering over your head and can actually observe what is happening on the ground. The parents always like to control the students' life, and they probably keep peeping in through the door, looking what the student is doing at home, which they cannot do in a school, right? So in a school environment, in a physical space, it is very easily demarcated that now we have come to learn. And therefore, the teacher will know whether we are learning or not. In the hybrid design, that physical demarcation is gone. And therefore, students face a lot of feelings like isolation. They might not switch on their cameras. They might not speak up because they don't want to be wrong if the parent is watching or if the parent is keeping an eye on them. They also withdraw because it's equally easy to withdraw from that environment. You just need to switch off your uh, microphone and probably the video as well. So in a classroom of say 75, how many can we moderate at one point in time? So they also have this withdrawal symptom where they like to do probably other things. And also the sense of time is very polychronous. Earlier, we used to know that we would be beginning our journey from home to school at 10 o'clock and come back at 2. Now, owing to the availability of online resources, we are probably sending a class to home and then taking out homework from them at different points in time. It is hardly possible to have a very designated time towards uh, the students in terms of one class moving from the other. There are a lot of spillovers in terms of discussion and homework, whereas earlier this can be done simultaneously. So one of the challenges of hybrid design is the design of time and place. And if it helps you, then probably this is the slide I would like to show. This is a cartoon by Mario Miranda. You know him. He is a very famous Indian cartoonist. And this is Mumbai. You know how crowded Mumbai is. Everybody is on everybody else. The houses are really, really small. So even if I'm teaching my 75 students at one point in time, there are numerous experiences where family members have come in, where probably there are sounds at the background, where probably, they have forgotten to unmute themselves and started talking to somebody else at the same time because they themselves are in complete confusion in terms of what needs to be done here. Likewise, the idea of time is very circular in Indian societies. If there is a time, this has also happened in my classes, that if there's a time for tea or snacks, the mother would definitely come and offer the kid something to eat. And if he or she is taking part in a presentation or probably talking to us, then he or she needs to look at the person coming and take his attention away from the class discussion that is happening at that moment. as teachers, Harvard says we need to be extremely careful about the confusion of students. This is the first point when we design a hybrid classroom. The amount of teaching that we used to be able to do in 1 hour in a face-to-face environment probably needs to be done in 4 different parts in a hybrid classroom. That is their standard statistics. That if in 1 hour you could complete one poem at one point in time in face-to-face classroom, in hybrid, take into account the difficulties of space, the difficulties of time, the sense of isolation, and the tendency to withdraw by the students, and divide those modules into 4 parts. That is what the advice is for our classrooms in the hybrid methodology by the Harvard School professors. So the first one is the physical environment. You create that environment. So you have to send the link in advance. You have to write down clearly that, as our organizers have done, that please join in 10 minutes earlier. That's a very effective practice in such kind of methodology. Because if the person comes right on time and the internet drops or the connection drops, is there a point saying that the student is not sincere? Because it's not in our hands. So that sensitivity towards the efforts of the students need to increase multifold in such classrooms. And the tendency should not be towards evaluation, but towards encouragement. Add to that the second aspect, which I believe is probably far more important than place and time. The second one is, and I'm again here giving you a very old theory by Honey and Mumford, the learning styles. Each one of us has a different learning style. No two people are probably alike. In a group of 5, in a group of 10, there is high likelihood that only 2 people would be alike in their learning styles. So what is this learning style? Let us understand a little bit of it, and then probably we can take a little activity here, because this is something really interesting for us to know about our students. Every human being is born with a specific learning orientation. And if we talk about it, it is either auditory, visual, or tactile. So these are the 3 styles of Honey and Mumford. And also it can be called the activist style, the theorist style, or the reflector style. What does this style mean? And how does it impact our design of the hybrid classroom? Let's do a little activity. Let's see how it impacts us. So you will see there is this link there. I'm going to paste this link on the chat box. And then you can take it up on your WhatsApp, on your computer, on your laptop, wherever you are. And take the test. It's a 20-question test, very small one, not take you more than probably 4-5 minutes to complete. And at the end of it, you will get an answer. I want to know that answer. What is your learning style? So this is the link that I'm going to paste in the chat box. And then probably I would like to know how many of you come from which learning style. So let me just paste this one in the chat box for us. Yes, see how you can just copy paste it probably. Okay, sorry, I need to send it to everyone. That's the first requirement. Yes. It's a very easy one. It should be really, really effective for all of us to know our own learning style. Meanwhile, I have a question which I would definitely like to answer, and also hold a discussion on that question. That's very important. I'm really grateful that the teachers joining today are asking these kinds of questions. Uh, the idea of cultural space, how it impacts us. This is the question that is there. I'll read it out from the chat box once we are done with the testing. Listen, ma'am, I believe you can also do the test. It really, really is fun.
Sure, ma'am, I'll try.
Yeah. See if it happens. Okay, so I can see that a lot of you have started responding, and so far I have got a few people who are tactile. You have to do it now. Of course, you have to do it now. Visual, tactile. Okay, I have a lot of sample. Visual, visual, visual. Auditory. Well, that's really really interesting. So. Just a general understanding I wanted to have that amongst the people who are attending this webinar today, how many of us are actually tactile and visual? And if I do a quick count, then probably we have an equal mix of visual, tactile, but less of auditory people. Okay, that's really, really interesting. Visual, visual, visual. But there are only two people who are auditory. So what does this mean for us? Sorry, I will just go to my slide. So then what does it mean for us if many of us are visual and also we are probably, auditory and we are also tactile? What does it mean for us? That is where I was coming to. Now we can stop the quiz. It's fun. You can continue doing it even after the class if you have not got the results. And you must also probably try to do it with your students. It's a fun it can be a fun WhatsApp quiz, and they really, really enjoy that. Let me have 2 minutes to talk about what I mean when I say that these learning styles are important. Anyone who got probably an auditory style of learning, uh, let's look at the second line. It believes these people believe that they learn better when they listen to lectures. So, in a count of say almost 15 people in this classroom, I could see two people as auditory, which means that there is a definite need for us as teachers to include lecture as a method of teaching, because they learn through information as divided into sounds, noises, conversations, or audio, which means in between you will probably need to ask questions. You will probably need to stop and reassure the students that you will repeat a point if they have missed something. You will go back to a question that you had asked earlier and still answer that question. Then only the auditory learners would probably be interested in the process of learning, because for them to understand anything without it being explained by the teacher becomes very, very difficult. However, you would understand that there are these two other types of learners as well, the kinesthetic learners or the tactile learners. Those tactile learners learns through touching, feeling, holding, doing, hands-on. Many of you are there who are tactile learners, which means if we go back to our learning styles and the hybrid design, along with the human element of learning, you by now have understood that if you are making your hybrid classes only lecture based, you're probably isolating almost 60% of your students who either learn by doing or who are also visual learners. Which means if you are using technology, or if you are using a resource as such as a poem or a story, or probably a quiz or even a mathematical solution, until and unless you put certain visual elements helping the students to solve or garner their interest towards that problem, a half of your classroom would just not be interested, and they will again go into that withdrawal mode, as we had earlier known, because the space gives them that opportunity. Now, do you understand how these are interconnected, and why the Harvard methodology says that if these three elements are not equally put into the element of learning, there is high likelihood that we would lose attention of a majority of our students, even if our intention is to teach them to the maximum level of capacities, or we put our life and heart into the teaching methodology. We lecture for 1.5 hours, we get all tired after this, you will still see that the retention capacity would be very low. One, because the physical and the spatial opportunity of being absent in online mode is higher than physical mode. Because if a student was sleeping in the physical mode or probably looking outside the window, you can straight away point him out. You can probably also make him ashamed that he is not paying attention. In fact, we must have seen the movie also, Tare Zameen Par, where the student was rebuked by the teacher for looking out of the window. However, that probably is not the student's fault as much as it is his learning style, that he is more interested in learning by either doing or as a visual learner. Those visual learners like pictures, diagrams, handouts, video clips, demonstrations, displays, and all other kinds of methodologies. Now, that's a problem for us as teachers. So we already are overwhelmed by these two types of problem in a hybrid design where we are teaching through the online mode. One, very less control on the physical environment. Now, let me go back to the physical environment for a bit. and respond to the question that was asked to me in chat. How do we educate the parents or the people in the household to let learning be autonomous and not always uh, instruct the students or the children of the household by kind of being physically present? How do we orient them? How do we culturally make them aware? As teachers, that's a great responsibility, that we don't give the parents an impression that their children are capable of learning and the parents are not capable of monitoring. We probably cannot do that. In fact, this is a time and place where we also need to accustom ourselves to the presence of people inside the classroom,
पता नहीं क्या प्रॉब्लम है
to disturbances, and probably be a little tolerant about it and encourage both the parents and the students over a period of time to trust you. That is one of our greatest responsibilities right now. That we don't mean to intrude in your household. We do not mean to intrude into the private spaces of the parents. And therefore, you can trust us that even at your space, we will be able to teach your children, monitor them, and not always, you need not always worry about them. That happens in B school situations over a period of time. How do we do that? At the very beginning, we also write a letter to the parents. I don't know whether it's possible in school education or in teacher training environments, but it's a must do. It's not merely about the parents, but also about the telling the students that it doesn't matter if you do not have a secluded place to attend your class. Let's try and keep talking so that we can learn something out of it. Over a period of time, the student becomes much more comfortable, and then they become involved in the process of learning. That mutual trust is the teacher's responsibility. We cannot demand it. We will have to probably negotiate for it. I hope I'm using the right kinds of words for you, because it is a great amount of success as we had seen, including the parents also in the binder that we send. Whenever there is somebody coming in, rather than looking at them as intruders, we probably give a smile and acknowledge them. If a student misses responding to you because a parent has come in or a family member has come in, we try to become tolerant towards it and say, okay, I'll give you another moment, gather your thoughts and come back. This has happened during assignments, this has happened, but this is the challenge of the methodology, and this is the new normal. Likewise, in learning and teaching, our methods need to be not merely lecture. It has to have videos, it has to have pictures, it has to have stories, it has to have online quizzes, it has to have polls, it has to have breakout rooms. And that is where probably the third element comes in. How do you master the digital element of hybrid designs of class? So after I talk about the technological environment, maybe I'll take a little break and let you ask a few doubts and questions. We must also discuss mutually, because it might be that there are challenges I personally have not experienced, or the Harvard professors probably had not anticipated, and yet you might have handled it very, very creatively and successfully. So we'll also discuss that a little the moment we finish the technical environment. This is the third circle of the environment, and there must be, these are all overlapping. You can see it's like I cannot have exclusive place and time. I also cannot have an exclusive digital environment. What if my connection drops? What if my voice is not audible? What if my video is lagging in time and my talk? Is it that the classroom becomes ineffective? Do we consider that the elephant in the room, not discuss it, be nervous about it and sweat it out? Or do we acknowledge, okay, it seems that I have dropped out of the connection, I send a message and then immediately try to come back? Or is it that if I am probably having some trouble with the video, I have the liberty to trust my students that I can actually switch off my video and probably continue the lecture in an auditory mode till some time when my connection comes back again. These are sensitivity issues, methodological issues rather than trust issues. We still consider these probably trust issues. Now, this is one environment where we need to get in, and I have a special slide with some solutions which I have collected together from a plethora of universities and webinars that I personally have attended. And those are best practices. I want to leave that slide with you so that you can benefit from reflecting on it and thinking about it at leisure, and you can learn and apply those. Personally, all our teachers have benefited from those, and these are all best practices that different universities across the world had followed, because technology is not new to the Indians. The pandemic is everywhere. Everybody is getting accustomed to it, and they're doing a fine job. We just need to be confident about it. So the first part of technology is, how do you consider it part of life? Say, for example, I'm referring to the question I got in chat that, do we need to do the learning styles questions now? In fact, we need to get into that mode that these are actually part of our teaching methodology. These are not isolated tests, or these are not assessment methodologies. Through that online test, I'm actually drawing a pedagogy. And these need to be very much part of our technical equipments and our technical bouquet. We as teachers also need to be extremely open-minded towards using online resources, online quizzes, online polling, giving the students the liberty to go into breakout rooms and discuss on their own and not control and peep in. So, few resources I have gathered together here, which can be used for uh, making an online quiz, taking certain online tests like the learning styles test that we did. There are also different platforms where you can start discussion boards. So we'll see that there is a Geely Summon 5 stage model, which I'm going to discuss at length as time permits us. We also have Cindy Huggett, who talks about a lot of, like the story that I have given you from Michael Hyatt in the very beginning. These are all learning tools. These are not my creations, but these are online learning tools which I have gathered over a period of time of research. So you'll see GoToMeeting, Jitsi Meet, Join Me, Blue Jeans, Google Meet, all of these are discussion platforms. The moment you are in a Google Meet, 5 of your students can gather together, discuss what is being taught in the class, and come back with a presentation after 15 minutes. Are we going to trust them to use the technology and not as much of a control minded teacher as we used to be during the face-to-face learning mode? That is extremely important for us to understand. Like Kahoot.com or Mentimeter are quizzes. In fact, in Zoom also there is an inbuilt polling. So if I wanted to know how many of you are actually tactile learners, how many of you are auditory learners, how many of you are visual learners, I can simply input it in that polling, and I can open that poll for you. You respond, and immediately I get a graph which shows how many of you have which style. I didn't use it because already I get to know in the chat feature, and probably, I will not have so much time today, but you are welcome to explore all of that and just use them towards furthering this learning and not consider them as distraction, because this is our new normal. This is what we should be doing and making ourselves comfortable with. That those 5 minutes or 7 minutes that are spent in the learning styles quiz is not any form of entertainment. It brings knowledge in a tactile way to the classroom. You are doing something and learning. And that is a very effective methodology of teaching because the students are part of the learning process. You are only giving them the solution. The learning had happened through them. So it's a very democratic way of learning. In fact, I believe that this democracy is not there in face-to-face learning because we are too controlling at times. So in the technical environment, as I can tell you, there are 3-4 concepts that I had tried to understand and bring it to you. One is the instructor-learner methodology. However, Harvard says that you should never speak for more than 10 minutes together without a visual element or without a question or without a quiz or a talk coming because learning is accumulative. It cannot be that you talk for 20 minutes and or 30 minutes and then ask suddenly a question to the students. One of the Harvard study is on the capacity for listening. And the idea is that within 20 minutes, your retention capacity of information comes down to 25% of the all information. And those 25, depending on your capacity to learn, may not be the most important. So a student's ability not to reproduce the information doesn't mean he or she is not paying attention. He or she needs to be guided even to the process of paying attention. So therefore, the idea is that without a visual element or a quiz element or a discussion element coming, you should not probably go on for more than 10 minutes and then bring a discussion point or ask or reassure or reestablish, are you with me? That's the instructor learner type. Most of the classroom should be learner to learner. That is what they say. And the WhatsApp message that I had sent is a learner to learner. You also get to know, if you are friends, that what the other style, other person's style is. That builds great team in online classrooms. So they can actually team up as tactile learners, or they can have a mixed learner group of tactile, auditory, and visual. That liberty and democracy also needs to go to the students. So learner and platform, we are already using that, using chat, question answer, whiteboards, annotations. So these are effective methodologies of interjecting a lecture mode in a hybrid classroom, because as we know, only a lecture does not do justice to the different learning style, nor does it do justice to the capacity of students to withdraw, because it's a physical limitation of the learning mode, and also because certain times just staring at the screen, looking at a person who is probably, say for example, I'm not extremely humorous per se. I don't have probably the ability to throw jokes like many of the teachers can. So is it possible for students to keep listening to me for 1 hour? If I am not personally humorous, I have to substitute for that humor by a methodology that I bring to the class, or a video I bring to the class, or probably a picture I bring to the class. So these are all thinking processes, of course. And as we go along, we'll learn more about how to design a hybrid classroom. And with this, for a brief moment, I would like to see if you have any questions, or you would like to discuss some limitations, anything that you have come across, or probably, let me ask you a few questions as to, to learn and see what are the kinds of resources that you are using so far, so that what I bring as best practices, in fact, I did not show it to you, the other PPT on the technical PPT. You must also learn about this. You have to give teacher-led motivation. So you have to bring in activities related to use of software and features. Explain why the students are learning through the online mode. So reinforce that this is our new normal. Don't be afraid. Let's learn together through this, and also devise ways for them to participate more. And ask the students to build their identity into the e-world. I really liked when the organizers at the very beginning asked all of you to put your name. It is establishing your identity. Now I could consider, and I can recall Nilima's name, I can recall Minnie's name. I'm taking the first name. I'm hoping that, we are all colleagues here. I'm taking the first name of all the teachers. But that gives me a great amount of comfort because I'm talking to a peer group. I'm talking to my colleagues here. And if I do not feel the need to know their name and identify them by their names or call them by their names, then probably I'm not doing justice to the classroom situation. In this environment, we need to be that sensitive. It is a test for us as well as the students. We are in it together. So we need to let go of that control element as we had earlier and move into a very democratic environment. It makes us afraid actually. However, well, we will make it, I'm sure. Okay, any questions or any experience that you want to share now? Just 5-10 minutes of probably, me knowing you as teachers and your practices. Maybe something I can put in my slides when I take it to another group of teachers next time. Anyone who wants to share an experience in any of these dimensions of hybrid learning and teaching, and probably want to share some best practice? You can write on chat also. I know it's difficult to immediately open up. I would like you to open up and take the opportunity for all of us to share our own knowledge and best practices. However, if you feel inhibited, I'm absolutely open to reading it on chat and then pick up a few questions so that I can uh, cross check whether I have experiences of those and whether I would have some solutions or some best practices to discuss with you, because what I have brought to this platform is based on my own struggles or my faculty members struggle with the online medium. For you the struggles might be easier. So anything that you want to talk about, let me go to chat and check a few messages if we have. Please feel free. For the next 2 minutes, I will definitely be waiting for your chat. Anyone?
Madam,
Yes. Yes, sir.
Madam, you are right. Actually, the teachers are really worried about the change of the earlier controlling environment. The students, the teachers often are afraid that in online scenario they are losing the control. And I personally know some of my friends who are really afraid when we get back to the real classroom mode now after these online classes. What will be the attitude of the students? Okay, so since you have asked us to narrate an incident, let me quote one of my friends. He was a real terror in the class. He was a real terror in the class. Okay, at present he's teaching in a +2 school. So earlier we were colleagues. Then I asked him one day, so why are you terrorizing students like this? And you know, ma'am, what he said? He said, I am actually afraid of my students. Before they start terrorizing me, I want to terrorize them. So it's a case of first strike, first time.
Absolutely.
He feels that he has to give the first blow, otherwise students will start striking at him. So this is a typical situation in many of our classrooms, many of our colleges and institutions, where the teachers are often afraid of the students. They are afraid whether they will be able to control the situation, control the students, or whether the students will start controlling them. They will be totally out of the scenario.
So I can agree to that completely. And since, of course, I'm a theoretician, I'll also have to give the theory behind it. So because we are also discussing at an intellectual level, and we need to address that not merely as a personal issue, but from a theory point of view, from a teacher practice point of view. So when I talked about cultural space, so the idea is, this is the theory of T.E. Hall, the cultural space theory, 1972. It's as early as that. He says that there are 4 spaces around the human body, from where you stand to about 8 inches, it's your personal space. From around 8 inches to around 4 feet, that's your personal and social space. From 4 to around 20 feet onwards, that's probably a public space. And then beyond that, it's completely a universal space. No control on that, sir. Then what happens when we are in an online environment and when we are in an offline environment? Say, for example, the factor that the teacher in a classroom has actually, yeah, proxemics, somebody said proxemics, and that's absolutely a theory that I go by. So in classroom, what happens? The factor that you have a desk and a table to sit establishes that you are the authority because you are sitting alone. The students are sitting in rows of benches. The space you occupy is far more than what the students are occupying. So they are already afraid of you because your desk and the table actually talk about your power over the students. Next, any moment you feel that you are losing control, the only thing you need to do, as T. Hall says, move into their intimate space, come closer, stand in the 8-inch zone. They will be afraid of that person because nobody wants another person to come into the intimate zone without being conscious. And if a power or a person of authority comes there, you are giving in your democracy immediately. So a classroom environment traditionally is meant to control power. Now what happens? I'm sitting in Mumbai, you are sitting in Kerala. Right now I have no way of knowing which part of Kerala, no way of knowing you as person. What is my control on you? Until and unless, of course, we have a common subject to discuss. And in that subject, we have common interest to share. How else do I hold your attention? I cannot command it. You will only give it to me if I can give you something useful. Can you see why so many teachers are so afraid of letting go of that control? Something which you could just. So it's legitimate that he's afraid what would happen once the students come back. However, I believe that we are into this profession not to get control. We are here by the command of the quality of the. So when I say technical tools and control, uh, the substitute probably is just sending them to a breakout room and then come into the breakout room, because in a breakout room you can have 4 students together come in and control a smaller group. It is that the experiment needs to be done in a legitimate way, not to gain power, but to have the collaboration going. Then this space becomes much more interesting also, sir. Okay, a few questions probably. Let me just read through that a little. So proxemics, of course, is something that you all must look up and learn about. We try to be inclusive with regard to physical environment. I'm absolutely sure. Sometimes students manipulate the technical environment. Well, that is something that I agree to. Sometimes students try to manipulate the technical environment. And that is if we can sense that it is not a genuine situation. Like this morning only, I had taken a class from 8:30 to 11:30 of an MBA batch of student. I had an assignment which was online. It was happening. One of the students came in 35 minutes late, said that there was a power cut and I couldn't come in. So can I join in later? Now, for a 1 hour assignment, if 35 5 minutes are already gone, it's not ethical for you to let the student take advantage of that situation. So while being sensitive to that, saying that, yeah, I can understand it might happen. However, let me restrict you from giving this assignment. We may have to go probably a step further and say that I'll give you a reassignment, which you will have to take within that time frame in a different environment on a different day, and not give in to these excuses. That much judgment probably all of us can make, and that liberty should always be with us to be strict. I'm not saying controlling, but strict in terms of ethics. Since I have no way of knowing whether it was a genuine power cut or not, let me also not be the decision maker, and let me follow the process and say that what other people have done, you will also do. That of course means that I have to set another question paper, but well, I think it's a choice between whether you want to be ethical or whether you want a easier way out. So we are all as teachers entitled to take that call. uh, Giving access to whiteboard individually so that they can express and feel, of course. Chat, whiteboard, screen share. If they create a PPT, or if you ask them to write on something and show a picture, they should be able to do that. I agree to that completely. So these are few basic skills that we are learning. I would like to respond to Amala's question there, specifically taking her name also, so that she can notice that it's a very good question where you teach primary school students. And in fact, for the next class, when we are talking about, uh, student-centric classroom, I bring a few examples of primary school teaching methods. Say, for example, you are looking at the names of animals. One of the teachers, and this is a Cambridge winning idea of lesson plan, teaches those students names of animals and birds by making them do the yoga asanas on camera. So if you're doing a sarpasana, you would write down snake and then probably make them learn the word, the noun snake. These are Amala very good methodologies. In fact, I would be very delighted to share, because my interest is also in teaching the primary school students, because they're the most difficult lot to teach. And I have a few groups of lesson plans and resources which I would be glad to share with all of you. Okay, the last question that I will take is gender. Girls are very, very attentive, boys are not. Of course, it's not merely gender, it's also probably the ability to be responsible in their private spaces. Again, the cultural element. When the other gender, the women are at home, they're not merely supposed to keep watching TV or reading a book. They're also supposed to help their mothers, talk to the elders of the family. If a relative comes or somebody calls up, pick up the call and help the family. Whereas if a boy is at home, nobody actually demands his time. So it's highly likely that trend would continue even while we are on camera probably. And the parents would pay least attention to what the boy is doing, or ask him or demand that they make it to the classroom. However, as higher school teachers, our point of view is equal opportunity. So therefore, if we really see that kind of a trend, then one of the ways that I have found useful is mix them in mixed gender groups immediately and send them with an assignment into breakout rooms. And if these groups are smaller, made into twos or threes, even for 5 minutes, write a slogan and come back on selling a product. I'm giving a business example. You can take up anything. So if it's a slogan, in that you can actually hold the person responsible. And you know what you can do? You can ask the same question to both of them, and immediately you get to know who had contributed more. So these are few of those methodologies probably, uh, through which you can encourage responsibility in a classroom. That is what I have personally found very, very useful in classroom situations also. Okay, then let me thank you for all the questions and the participations, and very insightful. In fact, I really appreciate the input on proxemics, input on primary schools, input on the cultural space and gender. I'm glad to be able to talk about it because I might have forgotten that. But I know that this happens, and we need to not praise the girls for being attentive and not discourage the boys for not being attentive, not get into that reproach mode, but find out creative ways to figure out the involvement and speak it out in groups, because in groups there is a peer pressure. If you are not working, then everybody else judges you, and therefore they become careful the next time. You just need to do it once, not with everybody, just as an example, and it works always. So let me move to the next slides, because I want to finish what I have brought, and but not at the cost of the discussion, of course. So then in hybrid, what are the methodologies that we get? I have seen the brochure, and I know that you will probably have an exclusive session on flipped classroom. That's a very good methodology for our current times. I'll briefly touch three methodologies and then go on to discuss one at length, which is probably in my agenda today. One approach in terms of our hybrid classroom, there is no one size fits all. You need to keep changing the structure of your class. So one of the classroom can only be discussion. And in the discussion, you can probably follow the flipped classroom method, where students teach. So you say that this is what is the topic of the class. You need to, I am giving you few material to read on. You do your Google search, you get your set of PPTs, and then teach the subject. I'm here to assist you if anything is missing. 3-4 things work there very successfully. One is peer pressure. If you come back with a very limiting set of PPTs or a very limiting set of exercise, immediately other people judge them and assess them. And that puts a lot of learning pressure on the students. Second, through flipped classroom, you are transferring your responsibility to the students. And therefore, it is outside their bandwidth of power. They suddenly feel very powerful. And to our surprise, many times I see that the students really, really participate and do a very good job. Sometimes I end up learning from them more than probably I've done justice to, because they're very good with technology. In fact, we need to give it to them that the new generation is far better than us in terms of handling technology. And therefore, in all technological matters, we probably need to only do the minimum and trust them to do the excellent job. So they can do very great presentations. They can help you in forming groups. I sometimes also give that responsibility to the students, that these are the groups I have formed. Now, one of you transfer them into the breakout rooms. This gives them a lot of sense of power. Every classroom, you can actually appoint somebody to look at the chat messages, the questions, select the relevant questions. That's another great responsibility for students. Select the response. Which one should I answer? You tell me. Once you choose, I will respond to. It comes with a great sense of responsibility to students, and they feel valued in flipped classrooms. So that is one of the methods. The other one is, of course, problem-based methodology. So what happens in a problem-based methodology is that you don't give them the answer. You give them the problem. So it may be a case study. Like, say, example, one of the lessons that I have, however, for a higher class, for class 9 and 10, is that, say, for example, Kerala is extremely renowned as for its tourism. And if school is representing the Kerala government as its tourism ambassador, bring a set of these posters and which places you have selected to highlight for its tourism purposes and its tourism credentials, have catchy slogans, and make a presentation to your groups, or make a presentation so that you can impress tourists of other states to come to Kerala. Now that's a problem you are giving them. They have to figure out how to write a slogan. They have to figure out which are the best places of Kerala to visit. They have to get statistics as to how many tourists come to Kerala at one point in time in the year. This actually makes knowledge gathering far more effective than you can probably cover in 60 minutes or 80 minutes classroom. So problem-based classroom, particularly in our business schools, we call it the case study methodology. We give them a case, something that has happened, already written. They need to get into the shoes of that person and tell us what would he or she have done differently if he or she would have taken the decision. It's a very interesting process. So as I said, if you give them the responsibility to solve a problem, it is also a way of asking them to gather more knowledge. So this is the second methodology that comes into the picture. And the third one is, of course, the most popular, right, hybrid, synchronous and asynchronous, which means this video I am also present, and we can answer each other's questions, doubts, if we have similar problems. Like all of us are teachers, we are facing certain issues. The asynchronous bit of it, the experience, the reading, the training in different methodologies, like I have my training, you have your training, that has happened at the background. Sometimes you can use asynchronous in terms of reading materials. Sometimes you can create asynchronous, like, I've created a quiz for all of you. I could probably also sometimes create a video for my students, which I try many a times in my class. Whatever I'm going to discuss in the class, I create a video, already share it with them. So they come to the class after going through my video, and then they start asking, sharing their point of view and asking me questions. I'm opening myself up for a discussion-based learning through synchronous method, rather than spend time, this is the textbook, read from here, read from here. That is extremely limiting in an online classroom because time is less. And also, if you're too busy in teaching the textbook method, you cannot probably interact enough with your students. So why not let them read the textbook, come back prepared, you also have your prepared material, and then both of you as a team discuss what is the learning process. So these are being discussed all across the world, these methodologies, and all of them have different shares of success as well as problems also probably. However, one thing is pretty sure, that a hybrid methodology, all these classrooms are directed towards making the student equal participant in learning. So as you said, there is no form of control that we are able to hold on to. In fact, the future, I'm sure, is going to be very, very democratic along with the students. And I'm sure we as teachers would enjoy our students' capability, and the students would also like the democracy to discuss anything and everything with the teacher and learn from them as facilitators rather than controlling teachers. Change is definitely coming, and we better prepare through these methodologies for change that come. So I'll just give you a moment to look at these principles. May probably need to take a photograph of the slide. I will also share the slides, of course, with you, and probably look up these methodologies later on in different websites. Meanwhile, there are a few chats that I would like to look at and see, if you can probably ask some kind of questions or share some kind of experiences anymore. Right? So we have a question. I have brief 1 minute till you look at the slides. Anything that you answer to, probably or any sharing need to happen? Because now I'm going into the scaffolding methodology. It has a video on its own. So therefore, it is going to be a little intense for all of us. So in the meanwhile, and it may be that towards the end, we may not have enough time to ask questions and share our concerns. Say whatever I'm giving you and approaches, you cannot question, or you cannot question the validity of it. I would really like some of you to question or ask questions as to how to make them applicable, like a problem-based classroom. If you give students the problem, then what would the students, teachers do? I've also encountered that question. And it is also related to control that we have in our mindset. However, experience reading and an undivided focus towards being a better teacher always at our advantage. No matter however good the students are in problem solving, benefit from our inputs. It may be towards the topic, it may be towards their behavior, it may also be towards their ability to look for knowledge on the internet. It actually opens up a lot of information for you. You can question them on a lot of different things. It becomes very enjoyable in terms of a classroom environment. So maybe probably, we can look at some sharing in a while. Meanwhile, let me take you to one very definite, very successful, this is all from the Academy of Management, the 3 types of classroom patterns that you can see that I put the source there. If you go to British Academy of Management, you see and I attended webinars on each one of them. And participate, even as a participant, you are supposed to be sometimes teachers and sometimes students. And I have found these methodologies to be extremely useful and proper for our knowledge. So there's no harm in looking for the details of this classroom, experimenting on your own and bring them as an initiative to the classroom probably. Okay, so let me just re-emphasize them. I'm flipping through the points once again and moving on to the next one that I'm beginning. We know that, to take care of time, we need to take care of learning styles, we need to take care of technology. And to take democracy to the students, that they learn by doing, not by listening. What is the perfect methodology to draw a hybrid class? And I have only concentrated on one methodology, because even for Professor Jilly Sun from Australia far ahead in thinking as a teacher that this method is definitely going to come to us since we are in journal. And she had designed a perfect Carpedian methodology, which talks about how okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Just, okay, thank you. So I'm not showing this to you. I'm bringing the steps, the words of Jillian herself. First, let me have a brief moment to explain this to you. It is called a scaffolding methodology. And in each step, you will have to build the concentration and intensity of the knowledge. That's the first thing. If you look at the scaffolding structure, you will see that it moves from a broad platform to narrower platform. It becomes narrow. The development phase is narrower than the setting up system or access and motivation part of it. There are two aspects to it. Technology, if you see, blue color is for teachers. It's e-moderating, which means that you are synchronously moderating the students. The other part of the moderating is done by technical support, which means what kind of tools are you using? What kind of technical tools are you using to deliver your teaching methodology? That's what probably she puts emphasis on, Jilly Saman. She says there are 5 steps to designing a hybrid classroom. The first stage is access and motivation. This takes care of what is in space and time, and also in terms of control. If you look at the first scaffolding, you will say the teacher needs to be welcoming and engaging. So every class that you design in the hybrid form, if it is repeated every day in the week, you still need to wish, encourage, acknowledge the difficulties the students might face, and probably begin with a motivational slide, story, video, or probably a picture, so that everybody is put at ease. It also includes asking the student how they on. It might be a poll questions, which probably ask them, what did you have for breakfast? If it is a primary classroom, you'll be so surprised to see the way they respond to that question. And that eases the tension that they also feel in that classroom. So the e-moderator, the teacher, needs to put welcoming signature in designing and setting up of system and accessing the technology. We need to always reinforce that there are difficulties, but let's not be nervous about it. Let's address that together. If, say, for example, for a moment my connection is down, I have 3 broadbands right now in this room, because as a teacher I consistently teach, so I cannot not, and I immediately come back always. However, for a student who is probably in the remote part of the country, might not be, and I do not blame that student for not, as I told you this morning, I could have straight away said that you are probably lying. How is there a give a proof, get a letter from your parent. Those times are over. We have to be encouraging. We have to acknowledge that we both are handling. We need to establish the human bond. Let technology take away the trust that is there between a teacher and a student. Why should that happen? And that is, the onus is on us. We are the elders. You their cheating, rather than going all out in cornering them, we create methodology to make them come into the classroom or make them be responsible. Transfer a little bit of our power into collaborate and make them come back in. So setting up system, accessing, telling them what are the features we are going to use, using them repeatedly, and also encouraging them to use that. These very, very good techniques in the first phase. I'm going to play Jilly Salmon, even if I cannot play her totally. I don't know how much time I would have, but it is my responsibility to bring to you the utter simplicity with which the professor brings this to the classroom. And I must have the opportunity to play that. By the time I run the video, I see a few questions or comments probably on chat. So just gather your breath. I'll see if there are any questions on chat and if I need to answer them immediately. right? So, okay, let me play Gilly Salmon, Jilly Salmon for you. The first part of the video. You will find that resource online, fully publicly available for your use, and I'm sure that you will be able to do that to the best of your capability. Yeah, here goes the video. Yeah. Let me extend and let me start playing at least for a while so that you can benefit from how she makes or
Hello
simplifies
everyone,
it.
I'm Professor Jilly Salmon. For online and blended learning to be happy and successful, your learners need to be supported through a development process, called a scaffold. It's a way of creating what people call pedagogy, a journey. I talk to you which provides you with a framework for a learning scaffold and one that you can incorporate into your curriculum. So the 5-stage model is based on extensive pedagogical and student research over 50 years. The 5-stage model offers the essential support to participants as they build up expertise on learning and on working together. And it helps you to productively blend face-to-face and digital environments. It will also help you to decide what kind of activities to consider at each point in your storyboard planning. The model will help your students increase their skill at working together, and it will also explain the academic and tutor standards. And it also incorporates ways of building in appropriate motivation at each step. So one way of thinking about it is as a flight of steps. So stage 1 of the step, individuals will need access and purposeful reasons to take part. One key to stage
Ma'am, your audio is off.
Shantana ma'am, could you unmute?
students can work together.
Okay, so I thought probably my connection dropped out. Can you hear me now?
Now it's okay, ma'am. Earlier we were not able to hear,
I think
hear you.
okay. So no problem. I think I was as you must have seen in the on the screen. I just play for a half a minute so that the connection or the continuation of the discussion is there. Play Jilly for half a minute and then move on to the other part of the discussion. I agree that probably there was a little disconnect in between and the connection went out. However, she was talking about team building, and from that point onwards, I would like to cover the other points on my.
If you create the right opportunities and build the scaffold from the ground up. At stage 3, you can expect that learners will engage in mutual exchange of information and make their own course-related contributions.
Okay. So let me stop sharing the video because of it is available. I'm just garnering your attention towards the scaffolding model that she had shown, and let me continue my discussion on the model and give you all the stages that when we are designing a hybrid classroom, as I had already told you that this section is under design hybrid classroom. At no point in time in a hybrid classroom, we can let go of the motivation, encouragement to students, and addressing excess issues of the internet or technology, or addressing their need to understand what are the methods that we are going to use in the classroom. So it may be telling them what is a breakout room, telling them what is a quiz, giving them online quizzes and copy paste the link to WhatsApp. All of these need to be established on a daily basis, not because one time instruction given and you must remember. That luxury is probably also gone from the teachers. The second one is, as we today did, establish names. Certain times what I do is I give them the renaming rights to write their roll numbers, and at times I ask them to write their first name. Sometimes I ask them to write the city they belong to. At times it rains in, and I say, okay, write the weather of your city in your name today. Along with the name, write those. So give me an instant connect with the students, which means it's online socialization. You have to treat your students as a team and tell them that what they miss in the physical classroom, they probably certain times are so engaged talking to each other that we used to get irritated. But now, even they are so isolated. So we need to establish that online socialization, and therefore we can use sending and receiving messages of technology, like write in chat, re-establish your identity on your screen. Certain times you probably bring an element of your personal life into the table that you are sitting and show it to us. Sometimes I even encourage them to sing a song that they would like together right at the beginning of the class, or refer back to a news which is very important. So these are processes for them easing them out into the class. Without this, if we get into the topic of the discussion of the day immediately, the information exchange, tutoring and supporting the learning materials, they always get intimidated. They are always like, how much did I miss? Did I miss an assignment? Did I miss a quiz? So a first few minutes of the class definitely is towards the encouragement, towards making everybody feel at ease. And then begins the information exchange, where you have to give them information. It's highly likely that you make this process asynchronous. Reading materials can be shared with the students the previous day. Videos can be shared. Uh, what kind of tool, like say you want them to make a presentation, you can tell them beforehand, write a mail or respond in a mail. All of these can be established during this phase and materials can be introduced. The fourth phase needs to be intense activity. Like you will see today, the model of jelly salmon I had bought towards the end, because by now we have understood what we are learning. This is what she also says, that the knowledge construction, now this model is there for you to use. I'm not going to be there to see whether you are using it or not, or how effectively you are using it. You will take your own responsibility and see how this works. That is how knowledge construction happens. I am, as a resource person, telling you that this is useful. As teachers also, we just need to probably tell our students what is useful and trust them to use it themselves. So then you can give assignments, you can give quizzes, you can probably ask them to repeat what they have learned and co-create the knowledge. At the development stage, particularly in the hybrid mode, assessment needs to be continuous. Now, that is one particular thing that I would establish with all my teacher colleagues today. We no longer in the mode of half yearly and annual exams. We need to move towards projects, shorter summative not cumulative assignments, but probably continuous assignments, and then regularly cross check them with their development of knowledge, give them feedback, supporting and responding, and then close a unit of our class as a whole. So in these 5 stages: encouragement or motivation and access, then building a team, being at ease, then starting the information exchange, then sharing knowledge, asking questions, building insights, and finally leading the students towards development of knowledge. So it may be done probably in the form of a quiz, in the form of an assignment, a presentation, even a discussion or a group discussion. However, that we need to consider as an assignment and encourage that process through feedback rather than discourage them by saying you are not right or you didn't do it right. Because, their learning opportunities are also getting limited in terms of the time that they have these days. So with this model, and of course, there are 2 other slides. We listened to the video for a bit. There are 2 other slides that I have put that you will see that in online synchronous classes and in traditional classes, the delivery is more important. In hybrid classes, the delivery is not so important as much as the design and preparation. So you must spend some time in the design and preparation. And in that responsibility probably lies our ability to give up control in classroom and make it a very democratic process in terms of the methodology. Now, how to make the students interested in that methodology is a different ballgame altogether. Let me stop my slides. We don't have much time, and probably, tomorrow I come back with this design that the first half of the class, say 10-20 minutes, you reflect on the PPTs that today we have discussed and come back with your experiences and probably few questions with which we begin the class tomorrow. Else, I have a lot of examples to share in terms of student activities, and we will get into that without doubt. But it would be really beneficial if we can discuss our mutual problems and then find solutions in each other's experiences. Right? So any questions here? If not, then probably I can leave the platform and leave it to the organizers and also the teachers, however they want to ask me questions or they want to wind up.
Over to Sister Bindu Mohan.
Thank you, ma'am, for this fruitful and innovative session. I now invite Ms. Minu and Matthew, B.Ed student of Mount Carmel College of Teacher Education for Women, to propose the vote of thanks to Shantanama.
A very warm good afternoon to one and all present in this virtual platform. I deem it a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to Ms. Shantana Padak, Assistant Professor, School of Business Management, Nasimuji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, for the wonderful session on highly effective teaching and learning methods. Ma'am, the EduTite presentation instilled us new brainwaves in teaching and learning process. The session spread our wings of imagination as it was very interesting and interactive. It kept each one of us lively. On behalf of the organizing committee and all the participants, I thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. My gratitude to all of you for the level of participation as well, because certain times I really need to coax the partners in terms of sharing their knowledge. But you people came up with a lot of suggestions, also shared few ideas as to how you are doing it, and that probably will make our session more effective. Tomorrow also I bring the best practices as I had promised, and I can assure that these are from all around the world. I had the privilege to probably attend a lot of seminars which had really opened my own horizons in terms of this methodology, and I'm really glad to share it with you, and really encouraged to see your level of interest as well, and hope in these 2 days we can share a lot of best practices, and then bring the benefits to our students, which are our main stakeholders. And I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. I'll share the PPTs with Lissy ma'am as a PDF, and you can refer to them. You can go to the websites that I have mentioned and refer back to all the resources that I have put together for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to express my profound gratitude
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
Dr.
Okay,
I
Minu,
would like
carry
to
on.
may I?
Yeah, I'm waiting. Minu, you can finish.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I would like to express my profound gratitude to Dr. Pushpa Marian, Principal, Mount Carmel College of Teacher Education for Women, for taking efforts to make this international webinar a great success. Thank you, ma'am. Today's welcome address was delivered by Dr. P.J. Jaya, Assistant Professor, Mount Carmel College of Teacher Education for Women, who has also been a great support in this webinar. Thank you, ma'am. As we come to the close of the third day of our international webinar series, I truly believe that this webinar would not have run smoothly without the untiring efforts of our dear coordinators, Dr. Suma Joseph, Associate Professor, and Dr. Lissy Koshi, Assistant Professor, Mount Carmel College of Teacher Education for Women. Last but not the least, let me thank all the participants who willingly utilized this opportunity and stayed with us till the end of this meet. I hope these insightful sessions will empower us in our career. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think I can say bye to all of you, and meet you at 1:30 tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. I'd look
Thank you,
forward
ma'am.
to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was a really creative session.
Thanks, Lishna. I'll talk to you, and also I'll send the PPTs to you for today, so that tonight probably, they can have
Sure, ma'am.
look at it and have some questions for tomorrow. That will really help me to discuss.
Okay, ma'am. Sure.
Sure. Thanks
Sure,
so
ma'am.
much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
ma'am.
ma'am. I'll see you tomorrow.
Really
Bye.
hectic day for you today.
It's fine. Thanks.
Ramakrishnan, sir, we can wind up.
Okay, ma'am. So
Ramakrishnan, sir,
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I
we
close
can
it.
close today's session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.